Welcome back, lovelies. We are here for the A-tier movies, and I'm positive that I'm gonna get hate comments. Of course, this is my opinion, and trust me when I say I've been thinking about this constantly, so much so it's even appeared in my dreams. So these decisions are not taken lightly, and I did put it to Instagram polls as to which movies got included, though there were a couple that I decided to include because well, they're available right now, so I kind of want you to watch them, and also because Tiffany Ferg asked me to watch one of the movies last year, so I have to pay respect to the person that literally gave me a platform. Christmas movies are the most nostalgia-laden product that you could possibly have, so I fully understand when people are saying that I'm going to ruin people's childhoods, but also nostalgia is kind of a bit of a brand moment for me because I always am looking back at stuff so we can learn things. And what I've done is I've looked at each of these movies with fresh eyes. Anyone familiar with retail is very familiar with that term, where you have to look at something as if you've never seen it before from an objective standpoint and actually assess whether it's good or bad and whether it's actually fit for purpose. So that's what I'm doing with this, and granted it is quite challenging to do because we all have nostalgia, we all have different connections emotionally and memories, you know, all that other stuff with movies. So I've tried to take all of that into account at the same time as separated myself a little bit. So when I say I have not taken these decisions lightly, I genuinely mean that. Just because I may not like something that you love doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because hey, it's even made it through to the A-tier movies, so that means it's got to be pretty good, right? So there you go. Now the categories are same as what I've been using this entire month, which I'm sure you're sick of now, but I'll still tell you in case any of you are new. S category is Best in Snow, A tier is You Slay Me, B tier is A Holly Jolly Time, C tier is Feeling Sentimental, D tier is Let's Get Elfed Up. Even though I'm not drinking anymore now, you still need to have a few drinks to get through this. E tier is Resting Grinch Face, and F tier is Get the Elf Out of Here. All, of course, very themed, perfect for the holidays. If you haven't seen my B tier or my Netflix movies, by the way, I did them last year and I've also done them this year, so go check those out. You can, of course, wait until the end and they'll be linked for you, so you're never going to miss out on movies that you should watch, movies which I think kind of don't get enough recognition. I'm going to try my absolute hardest to not spoil things for you. I know that a number of these are absolute classics, but I still want to make sure that you have a good time when you're watching them, especially if this is for the first time.
Hey, Christmas!
The anger, the fury,
the muscles.
So kicking things off, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I was initially going to include this movie into B tier, but I think that Gen Z would have actually murdered me, so I decided to include in A tier because it was a big enough budget, and I know that there are so many people that hold this really, really close to their hearts that grew up with it. You know, kids of the 2000s. I know Gen Z adore this movie. I've seen it memed so many times. I've seen people rate it incredibly highly. Now, is Dr. Seuss completely unproblematic? No, Dr. Seuss had many problems. I'm assessing just the movie and trying to remove him from it. This deserves to be placed here for the suffering of Jim Carrey alone. The makeup and hair took 2 hours to get in and out of, and he was wearing this for 92 solid days. The workmanship of the hair and makeup artist inspired everyone who's done highlight on their nose as well. I mean, talk about a cultural phenomenon of a movie. Now, it does have some funny parts, it's got some heartwarming parts, but it's honestly not really all that great if you're seeing things for the first time. When such a good version exists, which is in a cartoon form so much shorter, it kind of really does dull the glow that could have happened from this movie. I'm personally putting this into Feeling Sentimental. I'm not going to yuck your yum if you love this and you want to watch this every year. It's just not really an objectively great Christmas movie. It's got great Christmas message and it does have a lot of memeability, but when it comes to the real heart of it, and it's really missing quite a lot. There's a lot of misses when it comes to this movie. I'm sorry, there you go.
that's what I've been fighting against for years, the way they commercialize Christmas.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad isms floating around this world, but one of the worst is commercialism.
Miracle on 34th Street, the original, available on Disney+.
Could you be Santa Claus? Have you had any experience?
Oh, a little.
This is a classic for a reason. Kris Kringle is played so expertly, so well, and Natalie Wood is honestly charming, and I would love to do a video on Natalie Wood if you just want to have like a separate video on her, because I would absolutely adore to cover that.
Your beard doesn't have one of those things that goes over your ears.
Well, that's because it's real, just like I'm really Santa Claus.
Oh, go ahead, pull it.
The entire premise of Santa choosing one kid to focus on who just happens to be in America and living a very privileged life is very far-fetched, of course, but you know, we suspend our disbelief, especially for Christmas movies. He's instilling hope again in people who lost it, like her mother, and honestly that's still a very noble thing. Could we say that our male lead here using her child is a little bit creepy as a way to get to the mother? Possibly.
I also want to meet you. I read someplace that the surest way to meet the mother is to be kind to the child.
What a horrible trick.
It worked.
But I think there is harm. I tell her Santa Claus is a myth, and you bring her down here and she sees hundreds of gullible children, meets a very convincing old man with real whiskers. This sets up a very harmful mental conflict within her. What is she going to think? Whom is she going to believe?
And there is actually like a really sweet relationship that forms between everybody on this, and I think that's where so much of the heart comes. The main heart comes from Chris and Natalie, and Chris and himself, like calling out the BS of places, calling out capitalism. We love those sorts of messages, which is quite ironic given the movies. The politics and corruption on show is pretty interesting, honestly, and I love seeing Santa being as genuine as this. He's so wholesome and just wants people to be happy. I do definitely get warm fuzzies watching this, but when it comes to in comparison to Best in Snow, I personally want to put this into You Slay Me. I was tossing up quite a bit though, because I watch this movie every year. I also watch a 90s version every year, so it was quite challenging with this one, but it definitely is a classic for a reason.
There is the North Pole.
The Polar Express, available on Netflix, which is another reason why I wanted to include this. Like I mentioned, Tiffany Ferg did actually ask for this to be on the list last year, so it goes in A tier because it honestly was big enough budget. I'm sorry, Tiffany, this is one of the most creepy movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I kept on going, ah! At the screen, the animation of this is terrifying, even when it's not meant to be. So yeah, I was not having a really good time watching this movie, I'm very sorry to say. This was my first time watching it because I was a bit too old for it when it actually came out, plus like the animation looked kind of creepy back then, so I didn't really want to. And yeah, the creepiness is still there. I really wish that this was actually done in live action or cartoon instead of the 2000s wish to make everything computer generated in order to, you know, make it more adult. Because genuinely, if this was in 2D animation form, imagine if Don Bluth had done this. Like, you know, he did The Secret of Nim, so you could have all of those creepy dark aspects, but he also did Anastasia. Like, I honestly think if Don Bluth, like the studio, did this, it would be beyond fantastic. This would be way up there because you can see the amount of creativity, the amount of work, like the set design, everything about it. They put so much effort in, but I felt nothing watching this movie. And I am a person who gets roped into even terrible movies. I feel for even like the blandest of characters. I'm too much like involved when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, for me to not feel anything, that means that this is a pretty bad movie. I'm sorry, I was hoping to get warm fuzzies, and I know that they were trying for it, but it just couldn't happen because the animation, it literally comes down to the medium that it was like given to us in. So I'm gonna put this into feeling sentimental for those of you who actually adore it, because like I said, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, but I'm not personally going to watch this again, and I really wish that they did a remake of this but in 2D. I want more 2D animation to come back. It's such an amazing medium, and you could have gotten all of those emotions so much better. Brandon watched this with me because he is a sweetheart like that. He wanted me to tell you that the main lead is actually the villain, as he's the one who keeps screwing everything up, and the black girl is the victim to his ineptitude and has to fix every single situation, which is entirely correct. I can't disagree with him there at all. So this goes into feeling sentimental. If you want to watch it, go off. I never want to see these faces again in my life.
Hey, Santa! You killed him!
Did not.
The Santa Claus, available on Disney+. Rewatching this with fresh eyes was actually quite interesting, because what is it with 90s movies and making jerk dads into heroes? It's almost like the movies were being written and produced by men. And what was also on the rise at this time? Divorce. Wow, imagine that. So yeah, we also have our protagonist here, kind of an anti-hero. Scott Calvin is genuinely a jerk. Like, there is no way around it.
We just want to thank every one of you individually.
But we don't have time for that, do we? Real late today. You wouldn't believe the traffic out here. Yeah, same to you! I swear we're not fighting. It's your mom singing. Sounds a lot like fighting, doesn't it? Cats, even. The trouble is, Neil and your mom, they don't believe in Santa because they were real naughty. Which is why they'll probably get lumps of coal in their stockings. Hey, buddy.
There is good character growth and character development when it comes to him being a good dad.
That is exactly why you want a high-quality fire extinguisher right in the kitchen.
Those flames were really big, Dad.
But when it comes to him actually being like kind of an all-round nice guy, he doesn't quite get there, honestly. He's still a bitter, twisted jerk. He has a couple of redeeming moments on the whole, but the main focus really is on his relationship with Charlie, and the heart of this movie is with Charlie. Without Charlie, this movie would not be able to happen, and I like the fact that because it's a kids film, obviously, they actually incorporate him into so much of the storytelling. He's pivotal to this, and that's why this is so high up, because there is fat phobia throughout the whole thing. There are definitely issues when it comes to throwing psychiatry under the bus like this.
He's smart. He's a doctor.
He's not a doctor, he's a psychiatrist. It makes me want to...
Lash out irrationally.
Where did you hear that?
From Neil. I learn a lot from him. He listens to me.
Yeah. And then he charges you for it.
Issues with this, but there is so much creativity, so much joy, a lot of genuine laughs, that I'm going to put this into You Slay Me. It does not deserve to be an S tier in my books. There are just some aspects of it that I'm like, oh, okay. We've got way better options for S tier, trust me.
I love Christmas.
No, you don't. You make Have a Merry Christmas sound like a death threat.
What are you talking about?
Merry Christmas.
Have yourself a Merry Christmas, yeah?
You see, you just did it.
Last Christmas, available on Apple and YouTube to rent, and some sneaky websites that I will not mention. This wasn't wanted to be included by people, but I'm including it because honestly, for me, the heart, the message, the storytelling of this, the acting, the humor, I adore this movie, and I cry every single time. It has a twist in it that I don't really want to reveal because I want you to go and experience this for yourself. When it comes to actually well-written characters, like empathizing with the whole journey, seeing fantastic character growth and development, this movie really does take you on a really fun journey. It's so good. The only reason that people may not like this movie is if you're a supporter of Brexit, in which case you're not really a fan of my channel anyway, so I don't mind. But yeah, I honestly adore this movie, and if you haven't given it a chance yet, please do, because you really should go and watch this movie. This is a classic in my opinion, and I don't care what anybody says. Like I said, this is my channel.
Would you like it gift wrapped?
Yes, all right.
Lovely.
Love Actually, available on Netflix, and everybody's gonna hate me. I already know that. That's fine, I understand. I don't like this movie, and I think it should be completely deplatformed. Once you actually realize that the writing of this and the way it was all strung together and zipped between people so quickly that you can't quite let anything sink in, the fact that all of it is about just male wish fulfillment, and it's not really great, honestly. I'm not the first person to say this, and I used to adore this movie. Truly, this is one of my absolute favorite Christmas movies, but it's really not great. They piggyback off 9/11, of course, because this came out in, what, 2002, I think it was? And they use all of this nostalgia. The music is really fantastic, so they use all of this and trickery, but it's not good. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to break it to you. The issues cannot be unseen. The writer falls for his cleaner after ogling at her. The executive tries desperately to cheat on his wife with his subordinate, but we're all trained to hate her, the other woman, instead of him. Coincidentally, this is where the best acting happens in this entire movie.
A classic fool.
Yes, but you've also made a fool out of me. You've made the life I lead foolish too.
The wife cheats on her husband because of his best friend who has been creepily pining over her. A woman whose responsibilities engulf her life gets lonely and sad and left alone, even though her boss encouraged her to fraternize with an employee. What the hell is going on here? Did HR not exist in the 2000s? Just casual sexual harassment. Well, a widowed man gets mocked for being sad.
No one's ever going to shag you if you cry all the time.
And is rewarded with a literal supermodel very quickly after his wife passing. Oh, and the Prime Minister, with an absolutely terrible reputation for being sleazy with women, according to his own sister, gets with an employee of the bottom of the rung. Add in a whole heap of fat shaming, charming characters, and a whole heap of homophobia, and you've got a classic Christmas movie of the 2000s. I'm so sorry, like I said, but that is just the way it is.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Meet Me in St. Louis, available on TCM, Prime Video, Vudu, Apple, and Redbox. This is such a sweet, heartwarming, sad, and sentimental movie. This came out in 1944, so the World War II context here is actually very important as to why this movie had the impact it did. Coming out of a time where so many lives were lost, people that had been apart from their families for years, living on rations and fear, and of course it's a nostalgic movie looking back at a time when the turn of the century and, you know, romanticizing all of that. It does make sense. Like, we still do all of this today. If you're a millennial, you think of the 90s really nostalgically. If you're a Zoomer, then you think about the 2000s really nostalgically. Even though the 2000s wasn't great, go watch my trilogy. Rewatching this with fresh eyes, I still love it. The warmth that emanates from the screen is so joyful. The family dynamic is genuinely funny. Judy Garland is absolutely enchanting. It captures that teen infatuation really well and gave us one of the most iconic Christmas songs ever. Whilst I do understand that vintage cinema isn't for everyone, this movie is an absolute joy. Please go give it a try if you haven't yet. I'm putting this into a holly jolly time.
Wow. Okay, sorry about that. Boob grace. That was accidental. Accidental boob grace.
The Holiday, available on Netflix. Why hello, big dollop. Everything about this is a perfect romantic, festive movie to me. It's actually witty, got real character development, and other than the fact that the house for Kate Winslet's character literally doesn't exist and should be living in a shoebox flat in London with like 3 other people writing about weddings for a living, this movie has it all. Great chemistry between all of the leads, it's a classic, the humour is great, the gumption level is off the charts, and no matter how many times I watch it, I get warm fuzzies. Sure, it's a more idyllic look at life, but that's what you want at the festive season. It's a bit of escapism, but like realistic escapism. You're either Kate Winslet's character or you are Cameron Diaz's character. I've always been Cameron Diaz's character, even though right now I feel a little bit more like Mr. Napkinhead.
Hello. My name is Mr. Napkinhead.
People try to say this feels like a Hallmark movie, but oh my friend, trust me, as someone that watches many Hallmark movies, they wish they could come close to the amazingness that is this movie. I adore it so very much, and I don't know any women that don't love this movie. I think that every gender should watch this. It's amazing, it's heartwarming, it's got everything you need, and just, yeah. Plus it tells you to watch vintage cinema, so everyone that hates vintage cinema but loves this movie, the message is right there for you.
Barbara Stanwyck is dazzling. She's so sure of herself.
Sexy.
Really sexy. You know, every movie he's told me to see has this powerhouse woman in it.
I wonder if he's trying to tell you something with that.
Anyway, I'm putting this into A tier, you slay me. It's not quite approachable to everybody, that's why it's not in S tier, but I'm so tempted to put this in S tier because I love it that much. This is a classic, regardless of what anybody may try and say.
Do you know, Arthur? There is a way.
It's impossible.
They used to say it was impossible to teach women to read.
Arthur Christmas, available right now on Netflix. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to include it this year, so that you get the chance to watch a Christmas classic that I think most people don't even realize exists. And I don't know why. This movie is genuinely fantastic. Even Brandon, who was just like, oh, I'm just playing a game, he kept on looking at the screen, just watching it and laughing, because this movie is so good. It is full of so much heart. So you're taken on this journey by our titular character Arthur, who is Santa's son, but he's like a useless son because he doesn't have like the sort of military-esque sort of vibe of what his other brother is. And it's got so much in the way of heart in this movie, you can really feel it. And this is from Sony, I believe. Sony Pictures. Who'd have thought? Like, maybe that's part of the reason why it goes under the radar, but it is incredibly creative, incredibly funny. It has a real British sort of take on the issues within the family, and I love it so much. It's done incredibly well, and it just makes your heart happy watching it. Like, I basically have a smile on my face the entire time. It's got happy moments, sad moments. You're dealing with challenging family dynamics.
You may be the next in line, but you'll never get to be Santa unless you knock him off.
And of course everything is centered around Christmas and the importance of keeping the magic alive, just everything. You go on such a fantastic journey in this. The animation, because it's done in such a cartoonish way, it doesn't really feel dated, if that makes sense, because it is stylized in this sort of way and it makes a lot of sense. So personally for me, this goes into Best in Snow. I think that everybody should be able to watch this. Everybody should watch this. I'm surprised that this isn't topping more people's lists because it is so good. Everyone can watch this. The whole family will enjoy it. The whole family will get something from it.
Have you put any real pressure on these people of yours to pay those mortgages?
Times are bad, Mr. Potter. A lot of these people are out of work.
Well, foreclosed.
I can't do that. These families have children.
They're not my children.
But they're somebody's children, Mr. Potter.
Are you running a business or a charity war?
It's a Wonderful Life from 1946. This is the most classic of Christmas movies. I don't think that anybody could ever fight you on saying that. This movie is iconic for so many reasons, and I went into it because I was like, okay, it's been a couple of years since I've watched this. Let's actually see it with fresh eyes again. And I was charmed immediately, straight away, the whole way through, because of the casting of James Stewart. He does such a good job as George Bailey, our titular character, who is self-sacrificial. He saves his brother's life when he's young, which gives him a bad ear. He saves people's lives all the time. This is kind of what he does, is he is a savior for others and is incredibly giving. He really wants to go off on this amazing adventure, but then something tragic happens, which means that he has to be stuck in this town that he really wants to escape from. This movie will make you cry. This movie is very sad, but it's also so full of heart and happiness. And I'm sorry, but you know, like, Christmas is sort of a sad time. There is no escaping it. It's kind of why I love it, because you've got all this beautifulness and then you also have like that, it's like a hint of something bitter in the background all the time. I don't know what it is. Makes me think of this clip about the nail polish from American Hustle, like something rotten.
Smell her nails. Sweet and sour. Smell her nails. Rotten and delicious.
It smells like flowers.
Flowers, but with garbage.
I know it's a vintage cinema and I know it feels like a cliche, but when people say that this is their favorite movie, I fully believe them.
What? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
I love watching this, getting clips for this video. I was just smiling and I was just wrapped up in the story every single time. I couldn't put this anywhere other than Best in Snow. If you don't like vintage cinema, I don't know what else to tell you. You're missing out on a lot of gumption in your life. It hits hard, it's good, I love it. Best in Snow. Home Alone, available on Disney+. The backstory behind this movie is an entire journey into itself. If you haven't looked into the making of Home Alone, I implore you to, especially if you're a fan, because it will give you so much of a greater appreciation for what they were able to create. Because even without knowing that, this movie is incredible. It is an absolute classic for a reason. Child actors who can really act. Thank you. Oh my god. This is one of the defining movies of the 90s and it's heartfelt why. It's meme worthy, it's quote worthy, it's got a heartwarming message where multiple people have to learn lessons and grow as people, where the most far-fetched story of thievery comes to life, where apparently thieves in the US don't have guns somehow, and a kid is able to pull off incredibly inventive traps in a small amount of time, plus the soundtrack. You can just put this on at any time of year and I'll automatically be happy. John Williams' score for this movie is phenomenal. I will not hear anybody else slandering it. Joe Pesci is absolutely phenomenal, and the way that he got around not swearing was to create this iconic sound. Because it's Joe Pesci. He swore all the time as part of the problem, so instead he does this.
What? What? What happened?
This movie just brings so much joy. Like, I don't care about the CinemaSins sort of like striking down on it and people trying to make Kevin out to be a psychopath or something. I don't care about any of that stuff because honestly I think that most people that can remember themselves as kids have been fairly similar to this, and Kevin does change and he's just kind of a bit of a trod down kid at the start, okay? That's genuinely it. He's a child, oh my god. Kevin has better growth as a character than Tim Allen does as a fully grown adult, okay? And this movie came out first. It's amazing, and I love the relationship that grows between him and, what's the nickname they give him? The guy that salts the sand? The guy that salts the sidewalks. I love this take on it because it's all about reconnecting again with family and done in a really heartwarming, believable way, also facing your fears.
I'm afraid if I call him, he won't talk to me.
How do you know?
I don't know. I'm just afraid he won't.
No offense, but aren't you a little old to be afraid?
You can be a little old for a lot of things. You're never too old to be afraid.
It's amazing, and I think that this movie is S tier for all of these reasons and more.
Why don't you just say it? I'm the worst toy maker in the world. I'm a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
We're finishing this off with Elf from 2003, and I actually found it for free on a website where it's not dodgy in any way, so I've got that link for you down below in case you also want to watch Elf, because it's actually really hard to try and watch through a streaming service. I couldn't find any streaming service with Elf, but I had to talk about it because I love this movie. The first time I saw Elf was like maybe 6 years ago, because I didn't see it at the time. I was just the wrong age, a lot was going on in my life then, so I missed it at the time, and I could have so used this movie back then. Oh my god, this is so full of joy every single time. And the thing is, when you're coming up to a premise like this where you have to be as ridiculous as what Buddy the Elf has to be, you have to commit to the bit, and that is what happens in spades. Normally I'm not a fan of Will Ferrell, okay? I don't like him normally but in this it's phenomenal.
Sunshine and ravioli, macaroni, if you want the thing you love.
You did it! Congratulations! World's best cup of coffee. Great job, everybody.
It's everything you could ever want and more.
Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town. Santa! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him.
The acting all around is really good. The only bit I'm not as keen on is the teenage kid, but I don't really know many teenagers that are played all that well in movies, honestly. The memes, the jokes, the heart, the artwork, the entire styling of this, it is incredibly iconic, and I feel personally this is timeless. Like, the amount of effort that went into this, the care and attention, you can really see that. People learn the lessons in this movie, they change and grow, and it is so heartwarming. This truly is a classic. It makes you feel amazing, and it's watchable for everyone. Everyone should be able to watch and enjoy and appreciate this and all feel amazing. It's iconic for a reason. This goes in S tier. I don't know if you could have picked that up from the way that I was talking about this. I know that there's a lot in this ranking that went into S tier this year. However, when I say we're talking about A tier movies, for them to even start in this position, they're already really great movies, except for one of them, which I don't like now. So many of these Christmas movies are utterly charming, and they've formed to be part of our lives in a way where you can't help but feel joy watching them. Even when you're watching it for the first time you feel this way. Even when watching it for the 50th time you feel this way. Christmas movies are part of a tradition which I feel can get slighted all the time. I know that we are inundated with Christmas movies everywhere, but there are genuinely really good movies. I'm not putting these up here for being good for Christmas movies, I'm putting them up here because they're fantastic films in general. As a whole. I would even watch these at other times of year, honestly. Doesn't even have to be Christmas time, and I will have fun watching these movies. I'll be doing this again next year, and I will be talking about the sequels of Home Alone 1 and also the Santa Claus, like the second one. I'll also be talking about Muppet Christmas Carol next year. But if there are others, please do leave them in the comment section down below. What do you think of this ranking? Am I opening myself up to intense hate by asking this question? Possibly. If you disagree with my list, you can let me know why. Like I said, I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. If you love the movie that you love that is in this list that I didn't rank high enough, then that's okay, because we all have our own views and opinions on things. I think that's absolutely fine. I hope that you do get to watch it and enjoy it. I'm not here to like poo-poo on your parade. I'm just here to try and like have a look at things in an objective way, because I think that that's helpful. These 3 rows, you should watch. I'm just saying. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will have a Buffy video, so then we're not just talking about Christmas all of December, coming out on the 27th of December, and then I'll be having a week off because it's summer here. So a week off I think is well deserved. Remember to be nice to retail workers in particular. This is the worst time of year for them, and we always like to think of them, and everyone else has to suffer through this season because it's not easy for everyone. So hopefully this list has made it a little bit easier for you too. I will see you next time. Bye!